Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back once again. It's 4 o'clock Eastern on a Tuesday, which means it's time for the briefing room. Yes, indeed. My name is Eric Cavanaugh. I'll be your humble correspondent here today on the call. There's a slide about yours truly and enough about me. So as many of you know, the mission here in the briefing room is to reveal the essential characteristics of enterprise software. So we pair innovative vendors with independent analysts, and we get some perspective. So we literally broadcast a live analyst briefing. The presentation of the vendor comes first, then the analyst gives a response and just starts asking questions, and that is a live analyst briefing. The analyst and vendor do not coordinate before the show, and that's a big part of the magic here. We want to preserve the kind of natural conversation that occurs when an industry analyst takes a briefing from a vendor doing something new. So you, as the audience members, please don't be shy. Ask great questions. We always get a good Q&A at the end of these events. So this month is intelligence. Next month you can see integration and database and cloud. We cover different topics every month, primarily to help us organize things, but also to help you as an end user try to get some kind of apples-to-apples comparison across a particular space. So within 1 month, the idea is you can see several presentations and several live briefings to give yourself a lot of information about what these different products do and how they work and whether or not they apply to your particular needs. So we're talking about intelligence today. The topic is enabling true analytic agility. Bring your own tool. We got kind of excited thinking we had come up with something new there. It's not the only time someone's used that term before, but in our industry, of course, you hear a lot about BYOT, bring your own device, which is really funny that it would play off in the BYOB that we all know so well. But BYOD, really, of course, the iPad, the iPhone, primarily the iPad is what changed the nature of business in terms of device. Because before, IT used to be able to say, no, we don't want to support that. Executives came in with their iPads and said, well, you're gonna, and that kind of changed everything. And, of course, now iPads are everywhere. It's just amazing. I was looking at the amount of money that Apple has made over the last couple of years, and it was mind-blowing. It was absolutely stunning. I think $40 billion in profit in 2012 is the stat I saw just today. But goodness gracious, and the form factor is huge. So what we're talking about today is applying that same concept, bring your own tool, to say that you as a business intelligence or analytics user, let's face it, people want to use the tools that they want to use. You know, there was a lot of talk of standardization. I'm sure our analyst in the line, Wayne Eckerson, remembers this. I want to say it was about 7 or 8 years ago, there was a lot of discussion around tool standardization. And, of course, the argument was, well, it's better in terms of integration issues. These products all play well with each other if they're built in-house or if they're cobbled together and really stitched together tightly. And that is certainly true in a lot of different ways. There's no doubt if you're an SAP shop, the SAP applications that go along with it typically are going to work pretty well with SAP. I mean, they're all developed in-house or acquired and modified to stitch together to some degree or other. But really, I couldn't help but feeling a bit skeptical when we would hear all this talk of standardization, namely because it's really just the vendors who are pushing their own agenda of wanting people to buy more of their stuff. So the bottom line, though, is that there is heterogeneity everywhere these days. As you probably know, there are all kinds of new data discovery tools coming out, data exploration tools, data visualization tools, BI tools, analytic tools, all the reporting and traditional ad hoc stuff that's been around, plus just a whole variety of different applications that you can use to slice and dice your data, to visualize, to explore. And the fact is, end users want to use what they want to use. So the topic today is really going to dive into how a vendor, and we have Noetix in the briefing of today, can help you enable a BYOT type of policy for your organization. So, analysts, like I said, my good friend Wayne Eckerson, he's from the BI Leadership Forum these days. You can see bileader.com. Of course, he was at TDWI for many, many years. He's written a couple books about performance dashboards. So here's a guy who really knows about the proliferation of technologies and tools that can be used to do all this kind of wonderful stuff. So if you want to just hang on for 1 second here, I'm going to go ahead and push the next slide. Noetic specializes in access, reporting, and analytics for Oracle E-Business Suite. Its platform, as you can see, offers a full range of capabilities, provides users with a way to access data through simplified views of complex schemas. It's a really interesting play. I've been following these guys for quite a few years now. So they definitely specialize. They've spent a lot of time and energy to do what they do well. So I'll be curious to hear what they have to say, and I'll be curious to hear what our good friend Wayne Eckerson has to say as well. So we'll hear from Paul Winterstein, Director of Product Management, and also from Jeff Kirk. They're sitting in the room up there in Washington State in a little town called Redmond. You all probably know that big software company that's from Redmond. They're from a little bit of a smaller company, but hey, there you go. So with that, hold on, let me switch over. Actually, let me hand you the keys to the WebEx and let you guys share your desktop. Gentlemen from Noetix, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you so much, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
I'm Paul, and that was Jeff, and it's a real pleasure to be with everybody today. So we've got the slide, the cover slide up, and let's get going. And thank you already for that introduction. You know, we spoke to Eric a while ago, and the bring your own tool just resonated because that has been our reality and the reality of our customers for as long as we've been in business. And perhaps some people look at this slide and say, I can see myself up there. I've got one of those tools, or maybe I've got multiple of those. And we're going to explore a little bit more in this presentation on how Noetix enables our customers to leverage their investment in BI tools, whether it be one or two or many, including the latest generation of data visualization tools. A little bit about the company. We've really been focusing on business intelligence for nearly 20 years, and the software patents that we have are all about identifying, the key business elements within a database or data system and simplifying the access to those data tables and data elements within the database. We've been focusing on eBusiness Suite. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the presentation. And often we get the question, or some people come to us, you're in the BI space, are you a BI tool, a BI platform? And the truth is, yes, we have our own, but as we'll see through our software technology, if you've already got the BI tool from Oracle or Cognos or Business Objects or even QuickView, we are going to power that up and enable you to use all of those tools within your environment. So the key value proposition that we represent to the marketplace, and for a BI company, I think this is a large part of our success. And the reason we have functional left and first is that it is going to be those members of the corporate controller's office. It's going to be the procurement office. It's going to be the payroll group, or it's going to be the manufacturing manager, or the people running their projects. They need functional solutions, for the reporting, for the analytics that they need to perform their job duties. And we've always gone to the marketplace with very well-defined and pre-existing functional solutions. So we're going to talk about them a little bit more. And so we're not just a BI tool, but we've got out-of-the-box BI models and mappings for databases that provide functional solutions. Now, for a technical or influence in an account, they'll look at us and say, it's packaged. So we like the fact that it's packaged. You've got these predefined models. That means that other customers are using your model. They're getting value out of that. It's been validated by the marketplace. And specifically, our models we have packaged mappings specifically for Oracle eBusiness Suite. So for example, if it's payables aging information you need, then we've got not only the model, but the specific code to get that out of the Oracle database. And those mappings also even span versions. So if a physical schema changes, we'll have both versions of that mapping in our repository, as we'll talk about. Again, the technical people like the fact that we can integrate across multiple tools, and BI in a real robust environment has both real-time, near real-time, and analytical reporting, and we support all of those. And finally, for that economic decision maker, it's not just make or buy, it's buy and extend. It lowers your risk, it gives you an opportunity to get a quick win out of the box, and yet you can still customize and extend to fine-tune your solution to meet your key business needs. So what I'm going to do with these next couple slides is I'm going to place everybody within kind of a classic BI architecture and then show you where we fit into this. So the data sources that we all focus upon, whether it be a package like Oracle eBusiness Suite or some other packaged application from Oracle, such as PeopleSoft or JD Edwards, or perhaps it's another one still, Dynamics from Microsoft or SAP, as was mentioned earlier. Or you may use a SaaS application such as Salesforce, or you've got your own databases. These are the key data sources that are usually the basis of any BI solution within an enterprise. But these solutions include components. You're going to have your data warehouse, and you may or may not have an operational data store, but you'll have data marts. And you may have also real-time requirements where you are pulling data right off the OLTP system, using something like database views as your source to retrieve the data. Of course, you're using some type of common BI tool, and each of these BI tools have semantic models. They come basically empty. They have to be configured. They have to be set up to connect to and to work with your data sources, either in the data warehouse or directly off your operational or transactional source. And in the end, the users are accessing data through dashboards, predefined KPIs. They're running reports. They're drilling down on the data warehouse, or they're running real-time reports off the OLTP system. So all of these components exist somewhere within a classical BI architecture, and those that we've colored blue in there kind of as a visual aid. You know, Noetix has plays in all of those. We've got the data warehouse with the ODS and the data marts. We've got transactional views. We have our own Noetix platform as a BI tool, and we've got predefined analytical dashboards and drillable reports, as well as real-time reports. So now what we're going to spend the rest of this few minutes talking about is what are our components and how do they really enable this bring your own tool. At the center of it all is the Noetix metadata repository. Now it's not just a passive repository. It does come, we do preload it with content. We've defined enterprise models, and we've also defined, if the source is eBusiness Suite, the actual mappings, the actual code that will extract the data from that Oracle database to populate a given model. And the content also includes predefined reports and dashboards. Now this content lives in our repository. It's kind of neutral. It's not really, it hasn't yet been instantiated in an actionable form. And that's what that class of tools in the middle, labeled generators, do for us. That neutral metadata in the repository instantiates that as it builds a semantic model in your BI tool. That the generator will take that neutral metadata in the repository, instantiate a set of database views, and as you can imagine, because they're both based upon the same common definition in our repository, that semantic model in your BI tool is directly connected and integrated and consistent with your database views. Similarly, in your data in the Noetix data warehouse, the metadata exists there, and we instantiate all the various objects from extracting data, your ODS schema, your data mart schema as well. All of those objects are generated based upon definitions within our repository. We go further in that we even create some of the ETL code, the mapping within Informatica that actually extracts the data and loads it and transforms it within the data warehouse. Much of that is generated based upon definitions in our repository. And Jeff's going to demo a little bit later on, too, of the search part of Noetix. So really, we've annotated a lot of our models in the metadata, and we found that making it possible for users to easily find and understand the data they're looking for is a real key toward self-service. And then because it's all based upon a repository, we have a number of tools so that users can customize and extend both the models and the mappings that we deliver out of the box. So let's go take one slide real quick. What are the models that we have? And as I said at the beginning, is that we know from our experience that it's going to be the people from the finance department. It's going to be the people from procurement. It's going to be those project managers throughout the enterprise. They're looking for very specific solutions, to meet their needs. And so by having these models, we've been expanding this, over the years, been adding support for more versions of the Oracle database and the Oracle applications. This is what we also sometimes call coverage that we've got right out of the box for the Oracle eBusiness Suite. Now, back to kind of a classical look at things. This should be familiar to everybody. I've got my OLTP system. I may have real-time database views. I've got a data warehouse. I may have an operational data store. I'll have data marts. And of course, whatever BI tool you're using via the semantic model is connected directly to those data sources. And that's, in the end, when you're running a report, these are the parts that are interplaying. Excuse me. You've got your BI tool with a configured semantic model accessing objects in your various OLTP and data warehouse source systems. Now, how does Noetix kind of fit into this? Bring back that metadata repository. This is at the very center, and of course, as I mentioned already, we've got the tools so the developers at our customer sites can modify and extend the pre-delivered content that we have. We've got one software product that takes that neutral metadata and instantiates a number of database views in the Oracle eBusiness Suite. So all of these views are generated based upon their definitions within the repository. Another software product, Analytics, that Jeff owns. Many moving parts in there. The actual views that we extract the data from Oracle, some of the ETL maps inside Informatica, and the actual definitions of the ODS and the data marts are all generated based upon the data in our metadata repository. And of course, I have to mention as well, it's all of our analytics customers bring data in from other systems as well. We have a method via what we call integration interface tables where you stage data and our maps pick it up and add it to our ODS and data marts. Now, continuing around, we have software that will create a search index, really make the richly annotated data models that we have, the objects, the data elements, their definitions, their meanings, their data lineage, all make that very accessible to the person authoring a report so they can find and understand the data that they want. And we have a family of products as well that generate the semantic model. So if you're using IBM Cognos or SAP Business Objects, or Jeff is going to show us QuickView later on as well, or using the old Noetix platform as well, any of the semantic models that we generated are going to be automatically integrated with the source systems right out of the box because they're all based upon the same central metadata repository. So once all of this is all moved, once this is all done, your system is set up and ready to go. Now, real quickly, kind of a forward-looking comment. Today, everything we offer is on-premise. A real strategic direction for us is to move this platform to the cloud, open it up so we can create virtual communities of developers that can create models and extend our own model and create mappings, for the Noetix platform for other ERP systems such as Dynamics or SAP, or for any custom application. So that's kind of a forward-looking strategic vision where we're going. So once the Noetix part has configured your environment, then we're just back to that classic runtime architecture again. You automatically have a semantic model that's consistent with your OLTP source or with your data warehouse. So if you're using Cognos and QuickView, or you're just using business objects, that challenge, if you have multiple tools or you have one tool now and you need to get them under a consistent management, is overcome by the fact that the Noetix generated semantic model is consistent across all of those tools. So your data element definitions, the definitions of your data, the expressions that exist within the semantic models are guaranteed to be consistent. And that's some of the challenges that people have when they do have multiple BI tools within their environment. So, that is the end of the slide deck. And with this, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff.
All right. Thank you very much, Paul. Let me just do some shifting gears here and bring the first demo environment up. So I'll kind of apologize up front. I'm going to be demoing lots of components because, as Paul alluded to on the architecture slide, there's a lot of moving parts here. So I'm going to give an overview of the metadata repository, the development tools, as well as Noetic Search, which was the end-user index of all that metadata that helps them find the information they're looking for, as well as show our application as it would be exposed through a traditional BI tool. And I've picked Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition today to show you, as well as one of the newer data discovery tools, which is QuickView. So I'm going to be running through a lot of components, and I'll apologize up front if I'm going quickly, but we want to leave some time at the end for questions. And if there's anything that you do have questions about, just save that, and we'll get to it at the end. So the first tool I'm showing you here is Metadata Manager. So it's difficult to show you the repository itself because it's just a schema that sits in a database. So rather than show you a data model, I'll show you the developer tool and show you the types of metadata that can be created inside the repository. So the first thing I'll show you is the physical metadata, and that consists mainly of the tables that reside in the data warehouse for this example, and I've gone into the data mart schema. And what you see on the left-hand side are all of the preceded metadata that Paul alluded to, all the rich content that we have across different functional domains, whether it's accounts payable, accounts receivable, commissions, HR, manufacturing, inventory, supply chain, process manufacturing, projects, procurement, quoting, et cetera. There's just hundreds of pre-built data marts and operational data stores in the warehouse solution, which is what I'm kind of focusing on in the demo here today. And if I select one of these tables, for example, the top model margins, this is one of our fact tables that brings together information from receivables, but also the costing information so that you can compute margin values, for example. And you'll see I've got the table, not only the table name, but all of the column names that are in that table, and some of their attributes like what the data type is, what length, precision, and scale. So these are examples of the physical metadata that we store in our repository about objects that are in the database, whether they're in the data warehouse or the view definitions as well that might reside in the OLTP system. And this is where I can also add tables. So within the developer tool, I can add new tables. It has the ability to generate the DDL to then go instantiate the new table. Or if you're creating tables outside the tool in your favorite tool like Toad or SQL+, we can import the tables into our metadata repository as well. Okay, so the next class of metadata that we'll take a look at is the logical metadata. So if you go to the trouble of building a data warehouse, the key is all the logical metadata. How are the dimensions joined to the fact tables? What are the definitions of your star schemas? And so for this example, I'll go back to that AR top model margin table. And what you see here are all the joins. So the top model margin fact table on the right has all of these joins to the sales rep dimension, the account dimension, the organization dimension, the warehouse dimension, the customer dimension, et cetera. So this is a very rich star schema. It probably has 15 or 18 dimensions that you can analyze the revenue margin and cost by. In addition to joins, you can also define calculated measures such as margin or margin percentage, which are two that have been created here as examples. And I can open that, and you can see the definition that margin is an expression looking at the invoice amount divided by the cost amount. So, minus the cost amount would yield the margin. And then the margin percentage is just another version of that would include dividing by the invoice amount. So calculations can be performed at the physical layer and computed and stored during your ETL, or they can be defined logically, as I'm showing you here in the metadata repository as well. Another example of logical metadata would be hierarchies, and that's something that makes the analytic environment very rich because it allows the users to drill up and down hierarchies and look at information at higher or lower levels of aggregation, ultimately drilling down to transaction details in some cases. So on the date dimension table, we deliver a couple of preceded hierarchies, the first being the fiscal hierarchy and the second being the Gregorian hierarchy, just rolling up the regular calendar, month, quarter, year, for example. But as everybody knows, organizations can define their own very unique fiscal calendars, which may or may not correspond with the fiscal calendar. So just a couple examples of hierarchies. And then, one of the last major categories of metadata is the presentation metadata. And that is what do you want, how do you want all of your content to be organized? So we've organized it along these domains, financials, inventory, etc. And within a given domain, we have all of the data marts, and this is where the user would define some of the important business metadata. So first of all, what do you want the label of this data mart to be? And what do you want the definition or the description to be? So we're very careful about adding a lot of descriptive, annotative metadata, because that's one of the things that really helps the user be successful and helps our customers achieve self-service BI. If I open this further, we'll see all of the individual fields that are in this fact table. And again, not only are we providing the descriptive metadata, but we're also providing lineage information. So we're telling the user, this is a bit of technical metadata as well, but we're telling them exactly where the data is coming from that's populating this column in the warehouse. So maybe not every user might need that, but some of the more technical questions can also be addressed by the metadata in our repository. So that is a very quick overview of Metadata Manager, and I think I'll switch gears and show you one of the other tools that Paul alluded to, which is Noetic Search. So all of that metadata that the developer is creating and customizing using the developer tool is published to the end users through Noetic Search. And here is where the user can navigate the content, or they can use the search functionality. And search, if I wanted to find some information like the customer revenue and margin, I can just type in the search box, top customer revenue, margin, and the system would help me find the data mart or view that contains metrics that correspond to my search terms. So if I open up this same data mart that I showed you in the developer tool, I see the essay, the description is telling me the granularity of the data mart, etc. It's also got all of the fields grouped very nicely into the fact table, as well as all the dimension tables. And if I open up the fact table folder, I can see all of the measures in there. Here's the margin one, and I'm showing you, the calculation for margin. All that metadata has been brought across into this very searchable and interactive tool for end users, helping them search the metadata. All of the technical metadata is also published. So what are the physical tables that are mapped underneath this data mart? How are they joined? I can even look at this information, in the form of a star schema diagram. So a very end-user-friendly tool for searching the metadata. And then really quick, I'm going to just hop into one of the BI tools. In this case, I'm showing you Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition. And here again, I've gone into their ad hoc query tool, which is called Noetic Answers, which is called Oracle BI Answers. Apologies for that Freudian slip. And over here, I've opened up the same AR data mart folder. It's listing all the same data marts that you saw in the developer tool as well as in search. And I can scroll to the top model margin data mart and see all the same fact table and dimension folders as I had seen in search as well, and all of the metrics here as well. And if I hover over any of these fields, all of that descriptive metadata is also pushed to the BI tools, just making the user experience that much easier in the tool. So I could build a report here, but I think I'm running up on my time limit, so I'm not going to bother building a report, but I will just really quickly show you that we do have some report and dashboard templates already built off of this data mart, and I'll just bring up one of those really quickly. So for each of our data marts, we generally have tried to build one of these types of dashboards here. It's showing you some of the key dimensions in the underlying data mart. For example, this, I can look at this top revenue by bill to customer, or I could switch and look at margin and rerun this report, and presto, we're now looking at the top 10 customers by margin. So I won't belabor all the features and functionality of OBIEE, because I want to get to the last part of my demonstration, which is QuickView. And it's a very exciting tool, been around for several years, but started to gain a lot of traction in the last few years. And it's grown increasingly important in our customer base. We see customers that have standardized on business objects and Cognos and OBI are still supplementing those tools with some of these newer data discovery tools because they provide functionality that's simply not available in some of the other tools that I mentioned. So I've opened up QuickView, and one of the first things that a user would do is to create a script, because you have to bring data into QuickView. And our tool, by the way, can generate not only if you're familiar with QuickView, it can generate not only the data files, QVDs, but it can also generate the QuickView documents, or QVW files. So you would come into the tool, and the first thing we're going to do is build the script, and just shut this file down. I'm going to open up an existing file, again, just to save a little bit of time. Okay. So you would build a script by going into this script generator. And to get data into QuickView, I mean, this stuff is rather technical. But because we have all that rich metadata in our repository, you pick a special connector that we've designed for QuickView, and you walked through a GUI, a graphical user interface that we've built, to simplify selection of content that you want to publish into a QuickView document. And here you'll see the same tree structure that you've seen in the other tools. It's just for one particular subject area, financials, that I put in the demo environment. But it's the same tree. I'm opening up accounts receivable. I'm opening up the data marts in accounts receivable. I'm opening up the top model margin data mart, and now I can see the fact table and all the dimensions surrounding it in their separate folders. So, what I might do at this point is, oh, by the way, if I pick that data mart, you'll see all the same descriptive help text that we saw in search being exposed in this tool as well. And even if I go down to the field level and look at something like the margin, it's showing me the descriptive information there as well, and revenue. So generally what I would do is I'll pick these fields. I'll pick margin, and maybe I would pick total cost, and then I'd go to another folder like the bill to customer, and pick maybe I'll pick the country name, because it might be interesting to look at things by country, but I also, of course, want the customer name. And then let's bring in another dimension. Definitely want some item information. I want to know what these customers are buying. So I want to get the item name. And I may also want to know, hey, who's our top salespeople? So let me bring in the sales rep name, for example. So I'll just keep it simple and stop here. But what this tool is doing behind the covers, I'll show you the script. it's generating all this script that's going to run against the data warehouse, and it's going to bring the results of the specific items that I've requested into QuickView and store it in the in-memory database so that the user gets really high performance. So, for example, we'll just take a look at this first one. It's selecting from the top model margin table. It's using the, by the way, it's using the, it doesn't really have its own semantic layer, but it's still using our user-friendly names for margin. It's using the formula that we created for margin to compute that value so that it brings it into QuickView as an instantiated column. And there's just one of these for each of the fact tables and dimension tables that it's bringing information from. So that's a pretty quick demo. I'm just going to close this out, and ultimately you can see what this looks like, you know, in the tool. I've just thrown together a pretty quick QuickView dashboard here that's got my customer and sales rep and item, and I can see that this General Technologies customer looks like they're one of the largest from a revenue standpoint, even larger from a margin, so that's great. But here's another customer, which is Smart Buy, that's large revenue but rather small on the margin side. So anyway, it's a very interactive tool. I can drill down and figure out what's going on, and I'll just wrap up the demo there, and we can hand it over to Wayne.
Okay, good. Hey, thank you so much. Real quick before I give it over to Wayne, it really seems to me like a big part of your mantra or your philosophy there is not just giving access to the data, but really trying to simultaneously educate the user about their data, about the metadata, the different elements of different fields and that kind of thing. Is that a fair assessment? Yeah,
absolutely. It's really key to how we empower end users to be successful is providing the descriptive metadata to help them understand what is the piece of data that they're looking at.
In fact, on the R&D side, we have quite a few resources involved with annotating our predefined models with that what we call business metadata. And when customers are looking at us for the first time, we actually start there. And as product manager, I've often talked to the development organization how many, many times a customer will choose Noetix based upon the richness of the annotation, of the descriptions, and showing them everything that they have strictly with the business metadata. So it's an incredible part that we know that removes technical barriers for end users. If they can find and understand the data in the tool that they've been given so they can author a report, they're much more likely to be successful on their own rather than requiring IT support.
Yeah, I'll bet. Okay, good. Well, let me go ahead and hand it over to Wayne. Wayne, if you just want to click on that slide and use the down arrow on your keyboard, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Eric, and thanks, Paul and Jeff, for the overview of Noetix and the demo. I just have one slide for context for our audience today, and then I will launch into questions for Paul and Jeff, which I have many. I recently created this framework of the BI tools market. I think it actually does a pretty good job of describing the dimensions of usage and also the vendor market. So there's three dimensions here, or axes. On the left is BI functionality, starting at the bottom from data mining to analysis. So that's kind of the analysis functions, and then above the dotted line there are basically reports, dashboards, scorecards. Dashboards being real visual exception reports in many respects. To the right are the types of users that use these tools, and I've always said for many years that casual users really just want to monitor, for 80% of the time want to monitor existing business process for which they're held accountable, and a dashboard is a perfect medium for them to do that. Power users, on the other hand, below the dotted line, they need those more sophisticated advanced analytics tools that can connect to data sources directly, where they can bring the data in, munge it, do some analysis, and sometimes publish dashboards from it. But typically in the top-down world, above that dotted line, we're driving dashboards and reports off of a integrated data store or data warehouse. And typically IT or very sophisticated power users are building those dashboards and reports. And the traditional x-axis is scope, the types of users who use these tools, the individual analyst on the left, the departmental users in the middle, and enterprise users or deployments on the right. Now, inside the framework, you see 9 segments of BI tools, and some of them are in the top-down category, more IT-driven, more data warehousing-driven, and some are in the bottom-up category, more ad hoc exploratory. And what's interesting is that this chart, if I drew it 2 years ago, would have been slightly different. The visual discovery oval, these are these new in-memory visualization tools like QuickTech, which you just saw demoed. That oval probably would have been half to a third of the size it is now. That segment has grown, it's really exploded. It's subsumed the desktop analysis tools, especially Excel. These tools really are a better Excel for analysts who want to go connect to data, pull it down, and explore it. But now it's moved very quickly into departmental types of applications, especially QuickTech for building departmental dashboards. And now some of Quick's largest customers are pulling it into enterprise deployments. And Quick in particular is more of a dashboard development platform than some of the other visual discovery tools, which is why the oval now extends above that dotted line, where you do need IT help to create those Quick-based dashboards. And if you don't have IT help, then you use a QuickTech partner, which essentially is an outsourced IT team for you. The 2 biggest ovals are visual discovery and relational rollup being like Oracle BI Enterprise Edition, like we also saw demoed, just demoed. That traditionally has been our reporting and analysis environment, or lightweight analysis, and that's been more the dominant product that has grown and become more of the enterprise standard tool in many BI environments. So MicroStrategy, OBIEE, Cognos tools, and to some degree business objects. And all those rollout tools actually moved. They started out down in the bottom left as analyst tools for individual business analysts, and then moved into department, and now they're the enterprise reporting and dashboarding tools. So it's interesting how things evolve in the BI space. And it looks like the visual discovery tools will be doing that same evolution, although there are some different tacks that some of these vendors are taking. For instance, I mentioned QuickTech is kind of, if you think of the evolution of BI tools from the lower left to the top right, QuickTech is definitely making a straight line on that diagonal. It's going right after the rollup tools in many respects. Whereas a tool like Tableau is actually moving more horizontally and down towards the big data analytics market. That rather large oval, which is to date still undefined. It's really unclear what tools will dominate there, but it certainly is an emerging category that we want to look at. Large in-memory databases with a visualization layer on top looks like it could be the contender there. And then a tool like Spotfire, which is actually is going vertically in both directions, up towards real-time analysis, thanks to its TIBCO parent, and then down towards data mining, thanks to some of its built-in predictive functionality. So that's the BI tool market, 9 different segments. A lot of those segments overlap, and the question always is, do I need a different tool for each segment? And that's one way you could do it. I do think you're going to need a product in each of these segments, but that doesn't mean you need 9 different vendors, really. Some of the enterprise BI vendors can give you all of this in their single integrated tool set, may not get best of breed for all these segments, but you certainly will get all-in-one, and hopefully all those modules are tightly integrated on a consistent integrated architecture. But a bigger trend, and something that I speak a lot about and get some pushback often from the audiences I address, is that in this day and age, I think we've moved beyond the need to standardize on BI tools, as Eric kind of hinted at, and I think which is core to Noetic's value prop. Especially in the bottom-up world, does it really matter what tools users are using? Certainly if we have more tools, that's going to increase our support costs and a little bit of the complexity and provide some temptation for people to add business rules in those tools and reports where they shouldn't. But from an IT or BI competency center perspective, what we really need to focus on, the thing that's most important to standardize, is not the tool sets. It really is the data sets. It's, you know, it's the metadata, and that's squarely what Noetix is after. And I think a lot of their current value proposition seems very well aligned with that thinking. So I had a few questions for them here, but I'm actually going to ditch a lot of these. Based on what I heard, I had a number of others. Now, Paul and Jeff, I've known Noetix for well over a decade, and in the early days, you guys were very aligned with Oracle applications, and you essentially were building data marts off of Oracle financials to start, and then others. And you know, it was the value proposition of a packaged analytical application where you brought to the table predefined ETL mapping, predefined data model, and predefined reports to accompany all of those Oracle applications in their e-business suite and their predecessors. So that's, I believe, where you started, and it looks like you've branched out from that, and you can now support other operational systems besides Oracle, like SAP, and I think you said IBM, but Oracle obviously is still your sweet spot. And you can also, you're not tied into using your front end, but you allow other BI tools to hook into it. So my question is, to start, is two things. Why did you decide to open up to support other sources and other BI tools? Yeah, why don't we start there? So what was the driving force behind this new kind of approach to the BI market?
Right. Okay, this is Jeff, so I'll take this question. The first part is, what was the driving force to integrating non-Oracle sources? And one word, customers. None of our customers are wall-to-wall Oracle e-business suite, and so our customers took us there. And because we architected our data warehouse largely based on the Oracle applications data model, it's one of the richest OLTP data models in the market. And we've had great success in bringing in SAP data through the interface tables that we built to feed our model. So, so customers took us there, and our architecture being based on, on a very rich OLTP database ensured that our BI database was similarly, rich and could handle very complex models. And then the second part of the question is, why did we support other BI tools? And it was also very customer driven. In many cases, as you mentioned earlier in the presentation, customers had tried to standardize on BI tools, 5-6 years ago, and many of them did adopt a BI standard, and so we couldn't just assume that we could bring our own BI platform into any account, and so we realized our strength was in defining applications through our metadata repository and leveraging the APIs, of Cognos and Business Objects and OBI and QuickView. We're able to instantiate our content into these various BI platforms, through the API.
Okay. All right. So you started out with the Oracle OLTP data model, and now you support other applications. I assume a lot of your customers are still Oracle customers, but it sounds like your source data model is a superset of Oracle and SAP and IBM, I think you said, and then maybe whatever people want to define themselves for proprietary systems that they have in-house?
Right, that's exactly true. So we have a data model that's defined by the preceded metadata in our repository, and that data model can be extended as well. So for example, a couple of years ago, a customer wanted to bring Salesforce data in, and we didn't really have any tables that covered those subject areas in our model. So we used a Metadata Manager to define some new tables and bring that data in from Salesforce. So that's
okay. So now your data warehouse, you have a generic data model that covers almost all of business because you started with Oracle. How Oracle is that model now? I mean, is it genericized so that when you say bring in SAP data, you have to do you map the SAP stuff to the what you have existing?
Largely yes. And what we found is that the Oracle transaction schema is one of the most rich and robust OLTP schemas, and in most cases, it's. I used to work at Oracle, and the gentleman I worked for was the data modeler for Oracle applications, and he just lived and breathed in these ER diagrams, and he just ensured that database design was very, very rich. So when we've had customers...
Okay, so how do you then get from the OLTP model to a data warehousing model? I mean, do you have two models side by side where you map between one, or is the OLTP model the data warehousing model?
So our out-of-the-box, our ETL maps is what extracts the data from the transaction source and then denormalizes it into the data warehouse. So our warehouse has a couple of key parts, the first being the operational data store. That data is largely still normalized because the intent is to get data out of the OLTP quickly and get it staged into the data warehouse database. And then on a nightly basis, information is denormalized into star schema data marks.
So in addition to that,
I think that's what we were looking at mostly when you were scrolling through the file structure there. It was mostly the star schema marks that we were looking at. So those were generated from basically the Oracle schema that you started with.
So there's
or
two
denormalized,
components.
as you say.
So this is Paul. So yes, many of our customers still use it's the real-time reporting off the OLTP source or off the e-business suite source. Yeah, there's no movement of data. It's a views layer in that database. But those views themselves present a denormalized, kind of more business-friendly, view of that otherwise complex database. So that model is geared around the main subject areas and facets within there. So there's information about invoices and payments and service requests and payroll runs. All those subject areas, we've got covered. But even the model that we're presenting to users for real-time reporting off that OLTP source is still a denormalized model in the form of these database views. It's the Oracle functionality kind of drove the subject areas that we first built and continued to add to. And as Jeff said, as customers demanded more and more, we were able to scale by adding the definitions of more models and views to our repository. So that is for when you've got real-time requirements, which is, what's more critical than getting absolute real-time data at like a financial period close process. I've just entered some manual journal entries to to do some adjustments, to get the numbers where they need to be. I need to immediately see what my new trial balance is. And so every enterprise has some requirement for that. That's complementary to the star schemas Jeff showed you about, like AR top model margin, which is a little more classic star schema that's in our data warehouse.
For more historical analysis.
So when you guys say data warehouse, I mean, to me, I think of a separate repository running on a separate database. But it sounds like, do you have that? Do you have your own database with your running that data model, or is that all running in an Oracle database that also runs eBusiness Suite?
So the database views that Paul was referring to, we could throw a slide up if I get control back.
Yeah, we were capturing that in the slide deck earlier. So for many of our customers, it's both. In that, go ahead and.
Yeah, I gave you guys the key so you can show your slide. Just show your desktop or whatever.
Yep. We're there right now.
Oh, there we go. Go ahead.
So advanced actually down. Well, so this works as well. So in this case, OLTP, that is the transactional eBusiness Suite environment. So we actually create database views for real-time reporting off that. At the same time, there is the Noetix data warehouse. We have multiple schemas. We have the ODS, as Jeff said, that's still a more normalized model, but then our ETL processing will further load that data and build, up our fact and dimension tables in a data mart, in our data marts. And Jeff was showing you AR top model margins, which is a classical, star schema. So we have multiple.
Right. What I'm asking is whether you have your own database that these are running in. You have your own ETL tool, it sounds like.
What we do is, so we can generate our data warehouse into either an Oracle database or a SQL Server database. So just like, we can generate semantic layers for different tools, we can generate DDL and generate our data warehouse objects into the customer's database of choice.
Okay.
Right, because
all right, so then you can generate, then you use the APIs of all these BI tools and you take your metadata that you've defined for your data marts and generate their semantic layer from scratch, right?
Well, we generate it based off of our metadata, so we're avoiding the from scratch part, but it's automated,
Yeah, look at the repository on the screen. We've got a definition of a star schema in our data warehouse, an AR top model margin. The semantic model that we're generating off that same source metadata is guaranteed to be consistent with the actual physical structures in the data warehouse.
Okay.
Cool.
So this is the architecture that's in place when you're instantiating all of your reporting objects and you're instantiating the semantic layer, and then of course at runtime, the tools are accessing the objects that we've generated in the transaction system for real-time reporting, and they're accessing the objects that we've generated and populated in the warehouse for more of the
So, it almost looks to me like you're a data warehouse automation tool at this point. Like companies like Warescape or Kaleido or even Burst, which does this under the covers, which is a very powerful thing for people to do. It maintains information consistency and accelerates deployment, which is pretty cool. But you also have your own BI tool as well, which is an added bonus.
And one prevalent customer story right now, Oracle has replaced their legacy Oracle Discover BI tool with OBI-EE, and we have numerous customers that have been using Discover over the years and are transitioning to OBI-EE. So that consistency in the model that we provide for them, the Discover experience, the model of the data that they interact with when they author a report, is similar between the two. So it helps ease that transition and those that are making that switch, as Oracle is really looking for people to do. And that's where like a difference from a Kaleido, as you mentioned earlier, where we're going to come in is that we're enabling people to leverage the BI tool that they have and help they coexist, be consistent between tools, but also those that may be wanting to transition from one BI platform to another.
Okay, I got two more questions. One is Oracle's made a big commitment to packaged analytical apps, as you know, and you obviously compete with them on that score. I'm wondering if a customer wanted to get into this market, and a big Oracle customer, why would they go with you instead of buying an Oracle packaged analytical app that runs off whatever e-business module that they've got?
That's a great question, Wayne. You know, the irony is that customers might expect the Oracle BI apps to be more Oracle-centric, but surprisingly, an Oracle e-business suite customer that wants to implement the Oracle BI applications has to do a fair amount of manual configuration of things that we do automatically. We didn't get into this level of detail during the presentation, but flex fields are essentially user-defined columns or attributes that customers implementing Oracle e-business suite define when they're implementing the application. And our process, we didn't describe this during the presentation, but part of our metadata repository is pre-seeded metadata that we ship. And then another part of it is a discovery process. So we discover how customers have configured Oracle applications. What sets of books have they defined? How have they defined their chart of accounts? What are the hierarchies that defined in their account segment, in their cost center segment? We bring all of that metadata from Oracle applications back into our repository, marry that with the pre-seeded templates, and then generate reporting objects that have automatically picked up the flex fields that they've configured in the applications. So that's just an example of one of the ways that we're still very Oracle-centric, and it differentiates us, in fact, from the Oracle BI applications, which by the way, Oracle didn't build. That was acquired with the Siebel acquisition.
Right. So that's very powerful. Thanks for sharing that. My last question was about the cloud. You mentioned you're going to the cloud, and I'm wondering what additional value that offers your customers, since so many people seem a tad reluctant, at least in the United States, to move BI into the cloud.
Great question, Wayne. And you know, we had that other slide, what happens at query execution time. But this cloud platform that we're talking about, you know, this forward-looking direction that we're going, it's the definition of models. It's the definition of maybe modification or creation of new maps. By going to the cloud and opening it up to more developers. Over time, you know, the history of Noetix is it's been Noetix people that have defined the models, we've created the maps, we've maintained the maps in our repository, and we've focused on Oracle e-business suite. There's a lot of Microsoft Dynamics out there. There's a lot of SAP out there. There's a lot of people using many other sources, and we can't even name them all. And so the strategic direction is that by opening this up, we will create virtual communities of other subject matter experts who can use our platform to develop models and maps on the Noetix platform and deploy and get the value proposition of maybe using multiple BI tools in their environment, using Noetix, even though they've got maybe not Oracle e-business suite at all, but they have, say, Microsoft Dynamics. So that's
well, why do you have? Why can't you do that now? Why do you need the cloud to do that?
You know, there's a lot of subject matter expertise. So for the large part of the Noetix time that we've been around is that we've had the expertise within house, and we work with customers to refine and expand that. You know, it's a business decision to say, you know, let's harness all the infrastructure and the subject matter expertise that's out there around all these other applications, rather than bringing it all in-house. So it's really this idea of kind of taking down the walls and say all development happens in Noetix, but opening it up to these virtual communities of subject matter experts in these other areas to do development on our platform and create these solutions for, you know, beyond the walls of Oracle e-business suite.
Right. So technically, there's nothing holding us back from, you taking this technology and using it in the context of other applications. We do that all the time right now. All of our Noetic Analytics customers are pulling in data from at least a couple of dozen systems. So I think the additional layer that we're articulating as part of our future direction is bringing the platform to the cloud and enabling these additional content providers, if you will, a way to perhaps even monetize their IP. So we haven't yet. I won't say a lot more about that, but yeah.
Well, I mean, that is a powerful vision. There are a lot of companies already embarking on that path with communities developing connector, like SnapLogic, Informatica, even leveraging the partners, customers to create really a marketplace of connectors and I guess in your case, models.
I think the thing that will be unique about Noetix in this space, Wayne, is that we will be an independent tool that can generate XML, ETL metadata. We do it today. We generate XML that gets imported into Informatica. We could use another ETL tool if we, if we wanted to. So we've demonstrated that we're independent from the BI front end as well, because we can generate the semantic layer metadata for whatever tool you want to use. So I think that's going to be the thing that differentiates Noetix.
And I guess going to the cloud just says you're open for business with all these web-based or cloud-based apps that seem to be predominating out there.
Well, we actually bring in data from cloud-based apps today, so that our platform doesn't have to live in the cloud in order to support cloud-based data sources, or even cloud-based deployments of Cognos or business objects for that matter. We can do that today because, again, the runtime architecture, after we're out of the picture and we've generated the semantic model and we've generated the reporting objects in the application instance, we're not there during the runtime architecture.
Right, so this slide is showing, it still can be on-premise. When people are refreshing their dashboards and running their reports, this can still be, this runtime architecture be on-premise, yet it was configured and built, with the Noetix, cloud platform.
And any of these
right. I'll just, one more question, and then I'll turn it to Eric, because I know we're over time, but again, why aren't you doing that now? I don't understand why you have to wait for the cloud. Is it a perception thing, or is it some part of the platform that makes it easier to build a community around?
Well, I'll take you back to the beginning of the beginning slides that I had, where I showed the extensiveness of our enterprise model, and I talked about the functional element of the functional value of what we offer. So that we believe that when you've got this type of functional solution available, that's very attractive. When we would go up against just kind of technology plays in a competitive situation, they would see the functional part of our solution. They'd see what we call the content. They'd see we've got the model and the maps. And so we think that's very key. And so really, in a way, this is a strategy to enlist really very large audiences of subject matter functional experts that have techno-functional expertise in multiple other applications, and have them develop their content, on our platform. So it's a business decision to enlist developers from other areas of expertise, to develop the content, but also to be the platform on which that is developed and delivered to the BI tools.
Great, thanks. Eric, back to you.
All right, great. Well, we have a ton of questions, so I'm just going to start plowing through them here, guys. Let's see. You were just talking about this, about going more to the cloud, and so I think you've answered this question mostly, but maybe how should it be architected to appear as an integrated service for cloud services customers? That's an interesting question about the cloud. And I understand, I mean, I have to think that you're simply looking to leverage the social networking value of a cloud solution, build a community around it. That certainly makes a lot of sense. The open source guys have done that for years. There have actually been some really interesting plays in specific industries I've seen, particularly higher education, interestingly enough, has a sort of marshaling area for metadata models and schemas and so forth around higher learning. But what about just maybe one more comment or two about how you're going to architect the cloud-based solution and what all it'll provide? Guys, did I lose you?
Yeah, right. So it's basically our tool set that we demonstrated part of it today, the Noetic Metadata Manager, the Noetic Search, which is already a web-based tool, but then ensuring that that is all fully multi-tenant, supported as well. Those are some of the steps that we have to take along the way to deploying all the functionality on the cloud.
Okay.
Yeah, so a year ago, Eric, we released, almost a year ago, the Noetix Views Workbench. And from the ground up, that was architected. Currently, it's an on-premise application, but even its underlying model and architecture is directional in this way. So it's already multi-tenant under the covers. So it's really, the business strategy has been, demonstrate value, get adoption, in our classic model with people installing our software on-premise. But as these new generations of products that we build continue, as we continue to build them, they're being architected where whether it's on-premise or accessible from the cloud, it'll work either way. So that's a software architecture, question, and that's the one that we're well down the path on.
Okay, all right, good. Here's a very detailed question, but I think it can let you talk to a number of different issues. One of the attendees writes, we have launched a performance management appliance in healthcare that gives access to metrics with goals that are tied to any variance communication or tactical execution steps. You can look at the chat window and see it's the long one here because it's a long question. Being undertaken to ensure the goals are reached and the activities align with the strategy and the direction of the organization. Data points for metrics come from multiple databases, as you might imagine, many with BI technology already embedded. So the question, is there any endeavor currently that is trying to provide a means to navigate from the metric to the proprietary BI layer that the metric comes from so that the user can pursue BI diving within the separate proprietary tool itself? That is a very interesting question. What do you think about all that? It's a mouthful.
That's a mouthful of a question, and I'm trying to
I think he's basically asking about integration through other BI tools. You talked about, you showed how you were looking in QuickView, and you could kind of get under the covers to see how to bring the data in there. I think what he's talking about is using something like this as an enabler for a performance management tool where you're tying metrics and alerts and that kind of thing to access to all these different data sets, almost like a combination data mart, data virtualization type solution.
Well, the scorecard here would be kind of a superset consisting of data that's been rolled up and aggregated from lower level reports that are accessed via specific BI tools. So the question is, if your scorecard is a separate layer and you can't access that data from the scorecard, you would want to be able to click on the metric to drill down and then move into this other tool set to pull up the data. I'm not sure that's the best architected solution, if that's indeed what the person asking the question has.
Yeah, that's a good answer. So let's just kind of keep plowing through things. So one of the questions from the audience is Informatica provides data virtualization, of course, so do a couple other vendors. How do you play with data virtualization vendors?
Well, so most of the BI tools, semantic layers, support federation. In fact, on the runtime architecture slide, you basically see BI tools accessing multiple databases. And the fact that we can generate content from more than one database into a single semantic model supports, the goal of federation for your end users, because when they're accessing the semantic layer, they don't necessarily perceive that they're accessing multiple databases behind the scenes.
Oh, right.
So when we generate a semantic layer for Cognos or business objects or Noetic BI, it includes objects that span at least these two databases that you see here.
Yeah, I wouldn't classify Noetix as a data virtualization tool. It's kind of going the other direction. It's a data mart automation tool and
like
metadata management tool.
Yeah. Yeah, good. Well, we got a couple more good. Yeah, we got a couple more good questions, then we'll wrap it up, folks. Thank you so much for sticking around. We got a lot of great questions from the audience here. So where was it, though? There's a real good question where a lady asks, can you talk about some of the challenges you've encountered trying to build new connectors to some of these different products using Oracle as your framework? In other words, was there any specific challenge associated with trying to modify what you had built for Oracle to some of these other tools?
I'll address that. This is Jeff. So the model in the data warehouse, both the operational data store tables and the data mart tables, consist of a fairly large number, about 20 or so custom columns that are empty. So they're placeholders for when we do need to extend the predefined columns to address a data element that perhaps wasn't represented in the Oracle transaction database.
Okay, good. And maybe one more question. Let's see, there's a whole bunch, but you covered many of them already. I think maybe that's it, folks. So we'll send you a copy, or if you, let's see, oh yes, this one. I'm glad I remember this one. Okay, so one of the attendees asked about the topic of the day. Big data. Does your architecture allow for integration of semi-structured big data? If so, how?
Most of the data sources that Noetix has dealt with so far for our customers is typically their ERP and CRM systems. And while many of those databases are in the tens of terabytes, which I would consider large data, may not satisfy the industry's definition of, quote, big data, which tends to be more of this machine-generated data, web logs, and such.
Yep.
So we don't really have any pre-built subject matter data models for those subject areas just yet.
Okay,
it could definitely be something in our future.
Yeah,
and
well, folks,
I'll just mention one last thing, that we are looking at integrating some Hadoop technology to further accelerate and parallelize some of the ETL processing that we do today. So it would be leveraging what the industry may consider some big data technology on the ETL side of the solution.
All right, MPP is coming your way, huh?
Got it.
That's good. That's good. It's everywhere these days. Well, folks, thank you so much. Wow, what a long, we went through almost 80 minutes, so we still got about 50 people tuning in. Obviously, that means it's a good conversation. So big thank you to our friend Wayne Eckerson from over there at the BI Leadership Forum, and a big thank you, of course, to the folks from Noetix for stepping in here into a live analyst briefing. It's the real deal, folks. We will archive this webcast for later listening. You can always check back to insideanalysis.com, look under the webcasts section. And, of course, you can hop on the tweet stream with the hashtag of BriefR to see what's going on, or our traditional inside analysis. With that, I will bid you farewell, folks. Thank you so much once again. Take care. Bye-bye.